All right, thank y'all for coming and hanging out with us this Sunday. We're going to talk about elevating your relationships or elevating your self worth and the power of having healthy relationships. But we're going to talk about one very specific thing that is important across the board when it comes to any relationships. So first, we'll introduce ourselves.
So I'm Nicole Goods-Guidry. I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm a speaker, and I'm the founder of the private therapy practice 360 Life Solutions.
Okay. I'm Eboni Harris. I am a licensed relationship therapist. That just means I'm licensed in marriage and family therapy, and I mainly work with couples and individuals around their relationships. Also a serial entrepreneur. I have a few businesses. My private practice is eboniharris.com. I'm co-founder of Melanin and Mental Health, which is an organization that focuses on reducing the stigma of mental health in Black and Brown communities, while also trying to get more clinicians of colors to serve our community so we can talk to people that look like us. Also, CEO of Operationally, which is a business that focuses on helping small businesses with their systems and their back ends and things like that. I have ADD, so I do a lot of things. Also, I'm a mental health and wellness consultant for like corporations and businesses and things like that. So because of my ADD, I can't stick to one thing. So I'm always trying something different and do things that I enjoy. So I want to ask y'all a question just to start with. When we're thinking about relationships, what would you say are your non-negotiables? And we're talking about romantic relationships. We're also talking about just relationships in life. So can anybody tell me what your non-negotiables are, like what you're not willing to compromise on? Go ahead. Trust.
That's a big good one.
Say it again. Disrespect.
Yeah.
Honesty. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Inconsistency.
Love it.
All right.
Love it.
We understand.
Right, we get that.
We get that.
I asked that question because a lot of times when we talk about relationships, people will ask like, well, what is the most important thing in a relationship? Like people ask me that all the time because this is what I do for a living. And we often get a generic answer. And I'll even be honest that I often give like communication, intimacy, which is important. Let me just be clear. It's important. But the reality is the number one thing that's going to help you in any relationship that you're in, whether it's romantic, personal, family, whatever it is going to be boundaries. Like when we talk about communication, yes, when you have really good communication, that's great. But when you need a break and you need to walk away because y'all are in a heated conversation and that person keeps following you around, they're disrespecting your boundaries, right? If I'm a touchy person and my partner is like, leave me the F alone, but I keep touching them, I'm disrespecting their boundaries, right? So we're gonna talk about like how boundaries show up in relationships and what you can do and just kind of practice like what does that look like? Because sometimes it's hard to even like say no or know when is it okay to like have a boundary or not have a boundary. So
okay. All right. So when we think about the definition of boundaries, what comes to mind for you guys?
Have y'all heard boundaries before? Is it like a general word people use and don't really explain what it is?
Right.
When I generally think of boundary, I think of a line that shouldn't be crossed.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yep. Somebody
Anything
else?
Hand
up.
Yeah, I saw a hand over here.
No. Go ahead.
All right. Being able to like have your own personal life aside from them.
Yep.
Okay.
Y'all got a pretty good handle on it.
Anything else? So the definition of boundaries is to set limits to protect yourself and others, right? So when we're thinking about boundaries, you know, we think about rigid boundaries, porous boundaries, you want to set boundaries that allow yourself the freedom to be you and others to be themselves, right? So when we think about, boundaries, do you think that you struggled with setting boundaries in relationships with your friends, family, romantic partners?
Yeah. Okay. Most people say
okay.
And I have to.
right. It's definitely something that you have to practice. Can anybody give an example of when they struggle to kind of set a boundary?
So I said this morning.
Okay, so normally if somebody asks me to do something I know I can't do it, I'll say yes anyways, and then I forget about myself and I continue to help them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we overextend ourselves a lot. Especially, I'm gonna get to you, but especially as women, we're taught to be nice and be polite and all that kind of stuff. And so when people ask us to do something, instead of us thinking like, maybe I should say, let me think about it, or no, for right now, whatever, we immediately go into like, okay, what can I do to shift my day and figure out how to do this for somebody else when we might not even have the energy to do that. Go ahead.
I think a boundary that is probably most common for us is when someone hurts us, we put up a boundary, but then if they start showing consistency and we're going to think it's okay, but then they hurt us again.
Yeah.
So should we keep on having this boundary, or is it something that I should let slide again? And I think that's where the line kind of teeters sometimes.
That's good.
And I love that. I love that example because, again, it's not, shutting people out, right? And when people make mistakes, it's not about, one and done. Although that may be the case in certain times. But if people are making mistakes as it relates to, managing, respecting your boundaries, it's up to you to know how you want to navigate that. If it's one and done, or if you want to give them another chance. And we're talking about friendships as well, right? If a friend does something, you talk about it, but they continue to do it, you have the responsibility to manage how you want to deal with them. And sometimes it's not about cutting them off, but maybe repositioning them to a different place in your life that they can manage better, right?
Yeah. When I think about boundaries, a lot of times the thought is ending something, right? We got to stop it. We got to cut them off. We got to be done. And sometimes, I think you said it was a line. It's literally just saying there may be certain areas of my life you don't get to have access to anymore, right? So I have a lot of friends. But some people only get so far with me, right? Some people are business friends. Some people are personal friends. Some people don't get to come to my house, but we can go have a drink sometimes, right? Like that's the limit of what we got in our relationship. And that's because over time, as I've gotten to know them, I've learned like, oh, this is the extent of the relationship I can have with you. Because if we get closer in another area, that's no longer going to serve me or you, and it's going to cause more stress and strain in our relationship. And so that means that I have to kind of put you in this little box over here, and that's fine. We have a good time, but you won't be in this other box where I'm like bringing you around people I really care about or something like that, right? And so sometimes it right. Sometimes it is about like learning people and really being honest about who they are and who you are and whether or not where y'all fit and where y'all don't fit.
Right. So one example that I will kind of illustrate is the fact that, we live in a social media age. And, how many of y'all post every aspect of your life? Oh, none of y'all.
Nobody. Thank you for the honesty.
Okay, thank you for the honesty. And have you ever gotten feedback from people that might be your friends on social media or who follow you that might say something that you don't appreciate and you had to block them or unfriend them? Oh, never?
All the time. Okay.
All the time. And the point that I'm making is, as a former student athlete, now, again, I was a student athlete before this social media, demand. But if we take like Angel Reese, when she was dating, she was posting everything, right? Now that she's not dating, she's spoken out about, keeping that private so people don't speak on it, right? So sometimes when we're talking about boundaries, again, social media is one, because again, all of these people aren't necessarily your friends, but they may feel compelled to comment on it like they know you.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through different types of boundaries. Just because, again, it's a very like generic word. And so we want to give y'all like some very clear examples of what we mean when we're talking about boundaries and what areas of your life you should be working on your boundaries in. And we're also going to be honest about why it's a struggle sometimes to set those boundaries, right? So we're going to start with financial. What do y'all think about when y'all hear financial boundaries? Stop shopping. Okay. Say it again.
Okay, say it again.
I heard a whole bunch of mumbling.
In the blue, you said something?
Uh-oh.
What'd you say?
Stop
online shopping. Okay.
What about financial boundaries with other people?
Do you loan money?
Don't be tricky.
Don't be.
What'd you say?
So that like your friends or your significant other can ask you for money.
And sometimes family, which is much harder.
Definitely,
right?
Definitely family.
Family is a lot harder when you're the person that's like doing what you're supposed to be doing and they're asking you to help them out.
Right.
Right.
And the reason why we say that, because if any of you decide to go on to be professional athletes, we know how,
or just professionals in general.
Right. Well, professionals in general,
Yeah.
but what we see amongst professional athletes is when they get those big contracts,
Yeah.
their family has the expectation that, hey, you're going to take care of all of us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it's extremely important that you understand what financial boundaries are. So it's basically just saying you're setting clear expectations and you're setting a clear, like, what you're willing to do and not willing to do around money. Right. Mm-hmm. And so some examples I think y'all kind of gave is people continuously asking to borrow money. When you hang out with someone, they just have the expectation that you're going to pay for it. They don't even pull out a wallet. They don't offer any gas money. They just expect that you got it. But another financial boundary that people don't often know is you can be on the opposite side where someone is paying for a lot of the stuff for you, and then they feel like they have control over you, or they make you feel stuck.
Oh,
somebody heard that. Somebody heard that one.
Right. That's happened before. Yeah. And I think it's important to note that typically happens more so with, the female, where men tend to pay for things and have the expectation for various things in return.
Right. And so you want to be clear on like first off, a lot of times when it comes to boundaries, we have to start with like knowing ourselves. What's my financial situation? Do I have extra money to be helping other people? Do I have money to help people knowing they're probably not going to give it back? Right? Because you have to be very clear on loans. It's typically giving. It's not a loan. Right? And so if I give you this money and then in 10 days, I'm like, hey, I got to pay for this. Can you give me that money back? Then you shouldn't have gave that money to begin with because you might not get it back. Probably won't is what most people experience, right? Or they'll be like, oh, I only got this much. I can't give you all of it. I know I told you I'm going to give it to you the next day. And now we chasing each other, right? Mm-hmm. And so being clear on what you have going on financially, being clear on what you need to do to take care of yourself first before you start extending help to other people. Mm-hmm. And we often do the exact opposite. Someone asks us, we give, and then we think about ourselves afterwards. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when we talk about financial boundaries, yes, it's about like people asking, you saying no, but also it's about how do you respect your own boundaries with yourself? Yeah. Right. How do I say this is more important to me? I need to make sure I'm taken care of before I like overextend myself and end up in a bad situation because I'm trying to help everybody else out. Right. So let me give y'all a scenario real quick. If your partner keeps asking you for money, but you feel uncomfortable, how would you address it? I'm not where I think I should be. I'm not there yet. See if you can find somebody else to do it.
You don't know me like that.
Right.
They have the money for real though. Like I feel like they be having money. They can kind of see like how easy you quick to give the person the money. To see like, are you take care of yourself first or you gonna just out giving them money?
I love it. Yeah.
I am learning. I have a 20-year-old in my house right now, and every guy she talks to on Instagram, as soon as they get their number, they ask for money on Cash App immediately. I was like, what is this? They do a Cash App request immediately. I was like, is it? Okay, I'm glad everybody's not experiencing that.
Right.
She keeps, I'm like, what is happening? That's not how that's supposed to go.
Right.
So, okay, I'm glad everybody's not experiencing that. But if they do, deny it. Let's be clear on that. Okay, so telling them like, I don't have it right now, ask somebody else. I tell people all the time, if you struggle with saying no, say, let me see, let me check, give yourself some time to go think about it versus immediately saying yes, right? Sometimes people struggle to say no, so they automatically say yes. Ask for a little bit of time, let me go see what I can do, right? Or my favorite, that's not in my budget this month, I'm sorry. Like, because a lot of times what happens, especially when it comes to finances, and y'all will learn that again, whether it's family, friends, or romantic partners, y'all are going to learn that people, once you say yes, that you become the automatic. Yeah. They come to you first. They don't even ask somebody else because they say, oh, she got me.
Yeah. And to your point, it's usually a test to see how you are going to manage your own budget, your own boundaries and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So you have, like Ebony said, you have to know yourself. You have to manage what you know about yourself. If you know that you don't have it to give, but you struggle with, saying no to people, work on it. Right? In that time that Ebony has said, give yourself some time. You don't have to, you may not want to use the word no, but no can be illustrated in not at this time, or not right now, or I wish I could.
Right. Or maybe in 2 weeks. Because probably in 2 weeks they're gonna figure out the problem, the answer to the problem. So I don't have it right now, but in 2 weeks, let me check again. I might be able to have it then. Right? Again, these are like little sneaky ways to be able to say no without having to say no if you feel uncomfortable with that. We want you to get comfortable with saying no. Let's be clear. But I do understand that takes a little bit of work sometimes.
Right.
Right. All right. Oh, and I did want to say, when it comes to gifts, right? Do you have any thoughts on how early do you start buying people gifts? How early do you start receiving gifts?
Well, it sounds like the Cash App thing is like real early.
People are asking early.
So over here.
You said, what do you mean? So let's say you meet someone and you met them November 31st, right? So Christmas coming up. Are you expecting a gift? Do you need to buy them a gift even though y'all just met and y'all are just talking and getting to know each other? So it's been, hold on.
Let's give the young lady the first opportunity to answer. What do you think?
Like I do, but like I give. It doesn't have to be anything like extreme, but also like my mom always told me, like with friends, with partners, like always set a maximum and a minimum.
Okay.
Just because like we were kids at the time, we was always getting our money from our parents, or you working a part-time job, so you don't even be going out and buying somebody a $300 gift. And they only buying you this, and your $300 coming from me, and your paycheck from your,
Yeah.
So like, if we meet November 30th, like I am going on something when Christmas come around, but it don't have to be something like super extravagant. We can set a price.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have those conversations with people? Okay. Good.
That's good. What were you saying?
It depends, like, how long we've been talking. And,
Yeah.
like, depend, like, if I was down and they've been taking, like, helping me do stuff, then I think that's when the appreciation will come in around that time. For me to give somebody a gift.
So even if you just met them November 31st, November 30th.
You know what I mean?
You're not, that's too soon. Okay.
So,
Yeah. I think it's good to like you said, to have that like set expectation of like, hey, if we're gonna do gifts, if we just met, right? And like, hey, I saw this thing, I'm thinking about buying it, but if we're gonna do stuff, we need to keep it under this amount, right? Because we just met each other, we can do something simple, or just saying like, no, we just met, we're not doing gifts, and I don't expect you to get me anything. What about if someone, and I'm gonna move on to the next one, but what if you meet someone and you go on a date and they come with like an expensive gift on that first date? You gonna take it? She said no. You nervous? And again, that's a personal choice. Yeah. I just want y'all to think about these are different ways that your finances, what your boundaries are, how that comes up. Absolutely. Right? It's not as easy as like, here's money, it's giving and receiving money. Mm-hmm. Okay? Yeah. All right. All right, physical boundaries.
So we're going to talk a little bit about physical boundaries, right? So when we think about physical boundaries, what comes to mind?
Hugging.
Speak up.
Anybody? Hugging. You said kissing. When y'all think about physical boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Go ahead.
I think of like some people don't like to be like holding hands in public.
PDA, public displays of affection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's different for different types of relationships. So you might be comfortable with physical affection from your family, right? But romantic partners may take a little bit. Like I'm a hugger, and Ebony knows this. Now Ebony on the other side, and I just hug all of my friends, right? And she tolerates me. She does.
I will hug.
She hugs me back. But the point that I'm making is, that's my thing. But of course, she respects that that's my thing, and I respect that she's not going to initiate that, right? So when we think about different relationships, even as athletes, you may manage that, as we see, on the basketball court, men are, doing the butt pats and things of that nature. So talk to me about being an athlete, a female athlete. How do you deal with each other being, on the court or on the track or wherever? How do you manage those physical boundaries?
Wait. Go ahead.
Okay.
They do pat, stop.
But how did you figure it out?
Conversation.
Okay.
I'm a big system hunter, but I know it's a little hard.
Okay.
I'll she's also really good, but she's not ready. So I don't know if her.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That makes sense.
Was there someone over here?
Thank you.
How do you deal with it on your team?
On the field, we really don't like softball, but like we're spread apart a lot.
Mhm.
So we really don't judge each other that much. But we like if somebody do a good job, we really hard. We don't high five each other or like clap. Like we don't go touch each other.
Or just more talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
trash talk. No. That's to the other team. That's to the other team. Yeah.
I show love by talking crap.
Right. But that's
Yeah.
but that's sometimes a way of encouraging
Yeah.
your teammates. Look, go after it, right?
Yeah.
But again, everybody doesn't respond the same.
Yeah. And being able to Nicole's point of like, how do you find out? Being able to communicate that to somebody without like being upset or like understanding that everybody's different. Everybody comes from different backgrounds and have different levels of comfort. And so if somebody comes and tries to hug you and you're like, oh, why you touch it? Like, be a little understanding as well as the other way. If somebody says like, don't touch me, don't be like, wow, what's the problem? Like being respectful of the other people's like experiences and their desires when it comes to like physical touch. All right, they say we only got a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one I think is extremely important to talk to because, again, when we talk about boundaries, and I know we're talking about different types of relationships, but especially in romantic relationships, sometimes we struggle to understand that we are not meant to fix people. And we're not meant when they are having emotional issues or they're struggling. It's not our job to stop. Oh, I see eyes looking. I'm gonna pretend like I gotta see that. It's not our job to like stop our lives to make sure they're good, right? And I think that's sometimes hard to do because when you care about people, you want them to be good, right? When you care about people, you don't want them to be sad. But the reality is, you cannot fix them. You cannot stop them from being sad. And sometimes, again, we go into that control thing. People use emotions to try to control you. Right? And so we have to be mindful of, you can show care, you can show love, you can do all of that, but you can't fix whatever they're going through. I can sit with you in it for a little bit, but then I have to live my life. I still got school, I still got friends, I still got family, I got jobs. I can't stay with you just because you're struggling. I need you to also work on supporting yourself and doing what you need for yourself. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
What if it comes to like a sense of like asking for help? Because I know like nowadays like things can get hard. We're all athletes. We don't go through stuff. But like, what if someone needs help? How do you go about that?
Go ahead.
Well, and that's a good question because it really depends on the situation, right? So we're not saying don't be there for your friends and family, but know your capacity. So say, for instance, you cut your finger, right? And you need a Band-Aid. Hey, Ebony, do you have a Band-Aid? Right? But if I chop my finger off,
I can't do nothing about that.
Ebony can't help me.
Other than taking her to the hospital.
She could call 911. She can help me get there. So when we're talking about emotional boundaries, oftentimes, yes, you're going to talk to your friends about the breakup or them, being bummed out because they lost the game or lost, an event or whatever. But when it comes to things that are beyond your capacity, so let's talk about suicide. Sometimes your friends may be struggling. You are not capable of being there for someone in that particular case. As licensed professional therapists, that's what we're here for. right? And so you have to know, just like she would get me to a doctor if I cut my finger off, you have to know how much you can help your friend or family member through before helping them find additional help, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's, why don't you talk to your boyfriend about how you feel, right? Why don't you talk to your parents about how you feel? And if they, and if they can't get resolution there, maybe encouraging professional help.
Right.
And normalizing
to the
that.
counseling center. I'll do what I need to do.
Absolutely.
I can support you in a certain way, but I'm not your therapist. I'm not your doctor. I'm not your mother. I can walk with you to a counselor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need to be the person that's talking to you for 12 hours when I have to study for a test. I don't have the capacity for that because I have to take care of myself. Does that make sense?
But I love the fact that your question said, what about if they ask for help? Because I think that, especially with athletes, it's this thing about being strong. So when someone is asking for help, they may not necessarily be asking for your help, but asking for ways to get help for themselves to deal with this particular issue that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
But I want to encourage you guys to ask for help when you're struggling.
Yeah. And I think it's also extremely important to recognize that we are responsible for our emotions. They're responsible for their emotions. Again, to her point, we can help, guide, support, that type of stuff, but I just don't want y'all to think you can fix it. Because
Right.
We can't fix it. And we're therapists. We're here to help you on your journey to get better.
Right.
But I can't have a person come in and be like, all right, snap my fingers, you're better, walk away, everything's great. No, I help you through your journey.
Right.
Okay, we got a couple more real quick. Psychological is honoring your thoughts, opinions, and values without compromising them for somebody else. So just being clear on who you are, and not shifting that, changing yourself or anything like that because somebody else is telling you to do it or because they're saying, I don't like that part of you. Stop acting like that, right? Who are you to your core? And there's a difference between your behaviors and the core of who you are. Sure, are there some behaviors you can work on? If I'm yelling all the time, I could work on that. But my anger is not something I should be having to be like suppressed. You should never feel angry. That's not true. Everybody feels angry, right? So I want y'all to think about that. Thoughts, feelings, all of that. Those are things that are just who you are. The behaviors are the only things you should be working on changing if you feel like that's something that you want to work on.
And what we're saying is the emotion is natural. It's okay to be angry. What you do when you're angry makes the difference.
Yes. Okay. And then personal, I just want everybody to understand like who they are and being clear on like what's important to you, what's not important to you. And so when it comes to taking care of yourself, when it comes to how you want to spend your day, how you want to spend your time, how you want to invest your time, how do you make sure that you are keeping and honoring who you are versus compromising yourself for other people, right? So if y'all are athletes, right? So I'm assuming like moving your body and practicing your sport and things like that are important to you. If somebody comes to you and says, well, can I stay with you? Can you stay with me today? Because I'm having a bad day, but you got to get to practice. How are you going to prioritize your personal goals, your personal needs, and what's important to you, right? And so I think that's important to look at that across the board on what are your personal boundaries. We all get to decide what our boundaries are. Mm-hmm. We all have different boundaries, just like we talked about the physical thing. Mm-hmm. And so there are some things that like I always tell people, I don't use the B word. I don't like people calling me the B word. I don't care what you do around me. I don't care if you call 20 other people the B word. Don't call me the B word. And that's just a boundary I have. I'm not mad if you do it. I just correct you and let you know that's not okay. Now, if you keep doing it, then we're going to have some distance in our relationship. But that's just a boundary. A lot of people don't have that boundary. Right? And so we all get to have our own personal boundaries. We get to decide how people can treat us and what we're willing to accept. Okay. I'm kind of rushing because she said we only have like 5 minutes. So you have anything to say about that?
No, I mean, I echo everything that Eboni said. It comes to even when people mispronounce your name. One of the reasons why I go by Nicole, it's easier, but if someone chooses to pronounce my first name, which is Nikila, and they get it wrong, it's up to me to decide whether or not I want to correct them because that's how you pronounce my name. So it just really depends on what's important to you. And we want to stress that it's your responsibility to know what's personally important to you and how to navigate that with others.
And to teach other people how to treat you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, I don't know if we're doing questions or... Oh, okay. I didn't. Does anybody have any questions? And I put on here like It could be I'm asking for a friend. It could be hypothetically, if this had happened, what should I do? You know, if you don't want to share your business, that's fine. But I also would love to hear if anybody like did a really good job of setting a boundary and you're just not realizing it because of what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. No thoughts, no questions? Oh, okay.
I set a big boundary for myself walking into the new year of not subjecting myself to environments that not just gonna feel the way I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And basically setting a boundary between me and my dad of what I will tolerate and what I won't tolerate. Walking into the new year, but also accepting my faults. And I may not have done other things correct, but you also have to take your responsibility and moving forward there.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that.
And that's hard, especially when it comes to parents.
That is difficult with parents.
Absolutely.
So that's amazing.
Yeah. Because again, they raised you and you kind of oftentimes look at them as the law. And, as you grow up, school is a moratorium where you come to figure it out. And when you kind of figure out like, yeah, I don't like the dynamics in our relationship, how do you communicate that? So I'm super proud of you.
Yeah. You got your hand up?
I have a double life. Like I'm a mom and also play sports.
Okay.
So like I don't know how to manage how to tell somebody like I'm a mom and also play sports because I don't know how it feels to let somebody be judged of me being a mom at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how do I manage that? How can I be comfortable for them to let people know I am one, but I'm also as an athlete. How does that work?
Does it feel like those two things don't go together really?
They don't go together, so how can I
So go ahead.
Well, one, I don't consider it a double life. It's part of your life, right? Just like you came here as a student, but part of being a student is being an athlete, right? So part of your life is being a mom, right? So really just embracing the fact that there are multifacets of you. There are other areas of your life that really kind of merge, right? So really doing some work, whether it's talking to the therapist, the counselor here on campus, just about how you can kind of really accept all pieces and parts of yourself.
Yeah. And I also think when you were kind of talking, I was wondering if there are spaces where you do need to have that boundary, right? Where some people don't need to have access to the fact that you're a mom because they might try to use it against you and things like that.
Right.
So just getting clear on that, on who do I trust to get to see all parts of me? And there are some people that don't get to have access to all the different parts of me.
It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier about social media.
Yeah.
For those of you who feel compelled to share every aspect of yourself with people on the internet, maybe that's not necessary.
Maybe there's something
and that applies to people in real life. Look, you know me as an athlete or you know me as a student, and that's enough.
Okay, yeah.
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you.